Welcome to the STARS program, seniors taking active roles in society. And now, here's your host, Anita Finley.
So let me just tell you a little bit about Joe. Joe is he is one of the first board-certified elder law attorneys here in South Florida. And, of course, it's very interesting because when you ask a lawyer, are you board-certified, he certainly he looks at you like you're a little bit crazy, but it's okay. So Joe has worked very hard to create a great environment for people who want to have the very best in their trusts and in many other things. Are you there, Joe? Hi, Joe.
Yes, I am.
Yeah, this is great. It's wonderful to have you, Joe, this morning. Is it raining up there?
Not yet.
Not
but
yet.
It will.
Okay. Well, we're so excited to be able to talk to you this morning. You know, your article was extremely interesting about what happens when people have help and they're not paying them properly and they're not doing it properly and they're going to really be in trouble.
When they have which, I didn't have the article in front of me.
Oh, okay. Well, let me. I'm going to get it, but I just thought there was an article that when you have people who are caring for others and you're bringing them in.
The help article.
Yeah, that's a really important article because
that really is, and that can lead to a lot of exposure. Now, I don't handle that stuff, and I recommend that people speak to labor lawyers or they consider using employment agencies for help. As we may all know, that about 2 weeks ago, a new overtime law passed for the federal government, but this is an unrelated law where they say home health care people are now entitled to time and a half if they're working more than 40 hours. And everybody always sort of treated home health people as if they were not employees and they were independent agents, and sort of like if you hire, a cleaning company to come to your house and the company comes and you pay the company. Well, what happens is a lot of people have treated, and then they have people come and clean their house individually. They're not companies. Well, customarily, nobody ever thought of them as the employees. And that sort of carried over to home health care people. So if you had a nurse helping you or your wife or your mother in your home, those people always were sort of considered independent agents by the people hiring them, and even sometimes by the employee, the person doing the work. But they are not necessarily independent agents. They are frequently employees. And when you hire somebody to come to your house to care for somebody for several hours a day or a week, or they move in, and people think, oh, this is very convenient. I know, and I'm making up the numbers, so don't quote me. I know that the home health agency gets $18 an hour, but I know they're only paying this person $9 an hour, so I'll be a sport. I'll bring in this person at $10 or $11 an hour, and I'll pay them. And they'll do better, and I'll do better. And sometimes people even breach their agreements with an agency and sort of steal the employee and have the person working. And they think they're being generous to the person and saving a buck. Well, the laws have changed that these people are now your employees quite frequently. They are not independent agents. And it gets beyond the whether you should have taken out withholding tax and Social Security, which, if we recall, early in the Clinton administration caused a couple of people who were going to be elected, who were going to be appointed attorney general couldn't get their job because they hadn't done it. But now it gets far more serious. The person is entitled to time and a half. And you say, oh, this person loves us. They never do anything. They're so thrilled. We treat them right. They don't work hard. They live in, or they spend 12 hours a day, and her sister comes when she can't be there. And I have this woman 12 hours a day, 5 days a week, and her sister comes Saturday and Sundays. The family loves us. When we go have a barbecue, they all come over. And we've been paying her $10 an hour, and she has been fine, and she's loved it, and she loves us. A, you may be violating the law now. B, there may come a time when she doesn't love you. When doesn't she love you? Well, when you no longer need them. You may no longer need them because mom died. You may no longer need them because mom went to the nursing home. And all of a sudden, they find out they're entitled to time and a half. You didn't give it to them all that time. And they go to a lawyer. They're just taking care of themselves and getting what they're entitled to. You see a big, fat lawsuit. So for people who want to do it right, they should contact a labor lawyer and make sure they follow the law, dot the I's and cross the T's. And if they contact my office, I'll tell them a labor lawyer that they can contact. But they've got to understand it. They've got exposure. Yeah.
Well, Joe, I jumped on you with this because I was so impressed with the article. That's going to come out in our June issue. But let's maybe now back up, because I do want to talk about the celebrities who need elder law attorneys for their estate planning. You really showed in your last article in May all about that. So do you mind? We'll do the other when you call, when we talk to you in June. We'll continue that. But let's go back to the celebrities.
Well, and for those who just got the teaser, they can't wait for the June Boomer Times to come out.
Right. Okay.
Okay, well, we're all seeing that celebrities are just like us. They don't always do what you think they should do. You think that just because they're rich, they've got it done right. You think that they're going to have these tight estate plans. They're going to have dealt with their reality. And for the most recent event, we know there's a real question whether Prince ever wrote a will. We don't even know if Prince had a will. That's still up in the air. I mean, this is a multi-millionaire. And don't know what he intended to do with his assets, but it appears whatever he intended to do, he didn't leave a written instrument codifying it that's enforceable. He died without a will, it appears currently. That means people that he loved or wanted to care for may not be provided for. Now, if he had, and I doubt that he did, a bank account and trust for his sister, payable on death, she'll get that account. But frankly, most people, particularly of that economic stature, don't start using devices like payable on death accounts for people to get their money. They use a broader scheme. They're using a trust and a will and things like that. Prince didn't. We know that James Gandolfini didn't do any good tax planning. Philip Seymour Hoffman didn't. He didn't do not only good tax planning, he could do good real planning. And there's the rich and famous miss it too, because they are potentially vulnerable and don't want to either deal with it or they're just too busy. And we know that Joan Rivers had a real good tight estate plan, that she named the right people she wanted in charge. She dealt with reality. I mean, just as an aside, Joan Rivers' humor dealt with reality. So did her the way she treated her life and her potential death. So addressing estate plans, even the rich and famous blow it. Warren Burger, who had been Chief Justice of the Supreme Court, I mean, a hellacious estate plan that left him as vulnerable for taxes as one could be. So even smart lawyers don't do it because they don't deal with their necessities. And just remember, just because somebody's a lawyer doesn't mean that they deal with wills, trusts, and estates and understand that. Just as many of us have seen morbidly obese doctors who clearly don't follow the regimen for health that you would think they should. So just because somebody's in a professional field doesn't mean they address it properly.
Well, and is it? There's been so much written about this. Is it they don't think they're going to die, or what is it?
I'm not sure. It may be that they just don't think it's going to happen now.
Right.
They have plenty of time. They think they're too busy.
Right, too busy to die.
Maybe they're superstitious and they're afraid if they write a will, that's sort of the death knell. But it's very interesting. There's two issues in estate planning that people sort of don't recognize. One is sometimes people just don't want to deal with it because it's too problematic. Who am I going to leave in charge? Who's going to watch the kids' money? I'm hoping that my son's marriage will get better or he'll get divorced, and then I can do it. I don't want to have to do this twice. So a lot of people just look at the reasons that there's some uncertainty, and they say, oh, once this settles down, I'll have people come into me, and they'll be 60 years old. They'll come in to help with their mother or father's Medicaid planning or handling things with regard to a nursing home. And I'll say, well, did you take care of any of your stuff? And they'll say, well, once I get my mother's affairs in order, then I will do it. And life isn't like that. You don't have to prioritize one thing over the other if you have two things. Are you going to say, well, I'm not going to fill up my gas tank in my car today because I need to have lunch? Well, your car's going to run out of food, too, if you don't feed it food. You got to feed the car and feed yourself. You're going to have to balance things. You can't just say, I'm only going to do one thing and not the other. When both have to be done in a very logical sequence. So a lot of people just put it off, hoping that either they've got greater priorities or hoping that things will settle down. And they'll say, my daughter's marriage is really rocky. So until that smooths out, I say, if you're looking for terra firma, if you're looking for steady ground, I got bad news for you. The only time you're going to find terra firma is when you've got 6 feet of it on top of you. Life is not steady. Life is ever-changing. You're right.
So,
the other thing that people don't deal with, and this is, when I hit people with this, it's like right between the eyes. I had a husband and wife in yesterday. They were an intelligent, educated, organized couple. She had been a teacher for over 30 years and retired. He had been an engineer, so we know how organized and structured they are, for over 40 years and retired. They had done a will years ago that was at least borderline consistent with their desires, except their adult children were going to be supervised by her mother. That's how old the darn will was. But they had in their assets his 401k, which was worth over $1 million. They had their house, and they had some regular money that had been in joint accounts. But the bulk of their money was in his 401k. Now, a 401k, I said, you could have trouble if you need to access this 401k if something happens to your husband. And they both looked up proudly and said, she said, I'm, and he said, she's the beneficiary of this 401k. I said, oh, we're talking about the wrong something. If you die, no problem, she's going to get it. Well, what if you live and she needs to access that money? She's only the beneficiary when you're dead. She doesn't have a power of attorney to access that money. And both of them realized what a dramatic problem that would be. That they would, I said, you need a guardianship to get court permission to access the money that you would need. And he said, well, we have some other money. And I said, well, there's two things. One, some other may not last long enough. And two, if you have extreme medical expenses or care, pulling out of the 401k might make sense because that's income. And if it offsets medical expenses, offset some of that, it could be tax deductible and it may make more sense. Well, the engineering had really lit up then because all of a sudden he realized he's right. I could use tax breaks. We should sometimes touch the 401k. And just people don't think about that stuff. They sort of backburner it. They don't think about the realities. They don't comprehend it. I mean, once they heard it, the light went off. I mean, it was a no-problem issue, but sometimes they just don't want to deal with it. Sometimes they haven't even thought about it. And sometimes they always think there's something more important. And unfortunately, occasionally, statistically limited, but occasionally, something happens where somebody becomes incapacitated very suddenly. Car accident. And that happens far more than people come in, and it's funny, people come in and know what they're worried about all the time? If the two of us die in a car crash together, and I say, well, in my lifetime, I don't know about yours, Anita, but mine, other than the stuff I've read about in newspapers and magazines, until a couple of years ago, I never knew, directly or indirectly, any married couple that died together.
That's true. I'm thinking about that, too. You're right.
So, and that's their fear. We're taking a trip. And I said, well, if you're really that concerned, you really should have come here separately in two separate cars about a half hour apart. He said, that's not your reality, but I hear of people having strokes all the time. I hear of people being incapacitated in automobile accidents all the time. I hear of my clients falling, and they don't fall together. One falls and is incapacitated.
Right.
And one, all of a sudden, goes into a major physiological or mental incapacity. That's where I see the problem, and that's what you should be dealing with. So people just sort of don't address things that they should address. So movie stars are just like the rest of us. They have more important things to do.
Is there a way,
highlight it.
Joe, excuse me, is there some sort of a measure that when you have a certain amount of money that you then it just has to happen naturally that you do that? I mean, if someone has $100,000, I mean, sure, they should have it also, but
anything. I mean, what we are going to be doing, just by example, and we'll talk about healthcare, getting healthcare information. Okay, what we're going to be doing is advising all of our clients who have college-age children that their student children are legally adults. But these clients don't realize their kids are going to go off to University of Florida, they're going to go to Florida State, they're going to go to University of Central Florida, they're going to go to Harvard, they're going to go all over the place to school, as well as they may be going to FAU and staying locally. But if your child is 18 years old, you don't have the right to find out about his or her medical condition. They are adults. And what if your kid's in a car crash? there's federal privacy laws. I joke with my clients. I said to somebody yesterday who came in, there were a couple in their 40s, and I said, your daughter who's away at UCF really should do healthcare power of attorney and healthcare surrogate with HIPAA releases and durable power of attorney so you could access her bank accounts, or you could hire the lawyer to sue somebody if she was in an accident. And I said, she has to make the decision who she wants, but you have to do that. And I said to him, and I said, his wife was sitting there, I said, because God forbid if she was in an accident and your wife went to the emergency room and they wouldn't talk to her because she didn't have a release. I said, do you know what the legal fees would cost you? He said, what does a guardianship run? I said, well, number one, the guardianship may run $10,000 or $15,000, but what about the criminal defense lawyer for your wife choking the nurse to death in the emergency room when she wouldn't let her know anything about her daughter?
That's
and they started to laugh, but that was a reality. I mean, and I said, so you don't have to have a lot of money. And if we go all the way back to Terry Schiavo, one of our famous right-to-die cases, etc., if we go to Terry Schiavo, one of the things that created all of the complications in Terry Schiavo's case is she did not do this. I'm going to take you a step before the right-to-die issue. She never did a durable power of attorney. Her husband had no legal right to act on her behalf. Well, she was in this accident, and she was incapacitated, and he had to hire a lawyer on her behalf. So how did he hire a lawyer on her behalf? He had to commence a court guardianship, have her declared incapacitated, and he became named her guardian. And that's where all of this stuff started. So he was her guardian. He couldn't even hire a lawyer. And she had no money. So had he had been able to hire a lawyer right away, there never would have been a guardianship, and that would have eliminated some of the allegations without going in detail on the Schiavo case.
Right.
So it's just interesting that you think, because somebody doesn't have a lot of money or any money, they don't need some basic documents. Anybody could need a durable power of attorney. Anybody could need a health care surrogate.
So what you're saying then is...
Finally, the legislature has passed a law that our clients are now using. Believe it or not, Florida didn't have a law until last year where when you're a parent and you have a 10-year-old kid and the parents go on a trip to Europe or the parents go on a trip to Colorado and they leave the kid with grandma, we never had a law that said the parents could authorize grandma to make the medical decisions for the kid or the aunt or the sister, whomever. Now we finally have a law that you can have, a parent can designate somebody to be able to make health care decisions for a minor child if they're not available. So people need stuff, and not everybody needs everything. You know what? Most of us don't need a seatbelt when we're driving, do we? It's just the damn time you get hit, you wish you had it.
Right.
But I'm serious.
Yep.
Thank goodness, I haven't been in an accident in 30 years. So in theory, I didn't need to put on a seatbelt for 30 years. Forget about the ticket. I didn't need a seatbelt.
Yeah, just when you don't wear it.
I put that on every day because I need it.
Exactly.
Because the one time it happens is unpredictable. And that's the thing about some of these things. It's when the unpredictable, in terms of timing, and the unpredictable that you'll be the statistical anomaly occurs that you need that stuff.
Well, timing is everything.
And to deal with it.
And timing, we've run out of time. But this was very interesting, Joe. I love what you've been writing. It is amazing. We thank you so much. Have a great, I'm sure I'll talk to you before Father's Day, but if not, have one. And thank you very much. And you know what we didn't do?
Everybody stay dry and have a great weekend. And remember, you don't want to be the statistical anomaly, but if it happens, you want to be taken care of.
So go to karplaw.com, and you can see where the seminars are. Karplaw, KARPLAW.com. Thanks, Joe. We'll talk to you next time.
Take care, my dear.